Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome members and officers to this Cabinet meeting and also welcome anybody watching online. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to take attendance of officers attending virtually and to explain how proceedings will work.
Good evening. Can I confirm the following officers joining us remotely can hear us and that we can hear them? Jamie Norris,
Yes, thank you.
Joe Dufficy,
Yes, good evening.
Anne Banner,
Yes, good evening.
and Geraldine Goodwin.
Yes, good evening.
Are there any other officers in attendance remotely tonight that I haven't called out? Okay. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the results will be visible on the YouTube stream. Are there any questions? I will now hand back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. There have been no apologies for absence received. Minutes of the 19th of November and the 26th of November. I would like to propose that we take these as read and approve as a true record the minutes of these meetings of the 19th and 26th of November 2024. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Debenham. Any comments? No? In that case, may we go to the vote, please, Susan?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Notification of other business. There has been no other business notified. Chair's announcements. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recordings will be made available both on the Council's YouTube channel as well as on the Council's ModGov site alongside the documents from this meeting. Members are reminded that this Council has declared both a climate emergency and an ecological emergency. These are serious decisions and mean that, as this is an emergency, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included in the agenda front sheet. Members are reminded that to make declarations of interest before an item, the detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. For the purpose of clarification, 4.8.23a of the Constitution does not apply to this meeting. Therefore, a member may leave the room during the debate and consideration of that item and still be able to vote. However, please be mindful of the business on the agenda and wherever possible, leave at an appropriate time in the proceedings. I have agreed to a change in the order of the published agenda, and such agenda item 17 will now take place following agenda item 21. A supplementary document has been published for agenda item 21, Decarbonisation of Leisure Centre Update, with a cover report which supersedes the cover report in the main agenda pack. Okay. Public participation. We haven't got any this evening. Item 6 is items referred from other committees. 6A, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Leisure and Active Communities Agency Model Part 2 will be considered with item 8. 6B, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Leisure and Active Communities Agency Model Part 1 to be considered with item 9. 6C, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Council Delivery Plan 24-25 Quarter 2 Update to be considered with item 19. 6D, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Garden Waste Charge 25-26 to be considered with item 20. 6E, Finance Audit and Risk Committee, Report on Risk Management Governance, the mid-year update will be considered with item 15. 6F, the Finance Audit and Risk Committee second quarter revenue budget monitoring 24-25. I think I just read. To be considered with item 16. 6G, Finance Audit and Risk Committee second quarter investment strategy, capital and treasury review 24-25 to be considered with item 17. 6H, Finance Audit and Risk Committee's revenue and capital budgets for 25-26 onwards to be considered with item 18. Number 7, exclusion of the press and public. I propose that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the said Act as amended. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bryant. Thank you. May we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Item 9, Leisure and Active Communities Agency Model, Part 1. Councillor Debenham to present the referral from overview and scrutiny and to report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. At ONS, there was a brief discussion around the balance of risk versus the financial benefits of moving to the agency model. And on balance, the committee approved the recommendations in the report. In March 2023, HMRC announced a significant change to the VAT treatment of local authority leisure services, which means that most suppliers of leisure services by a local authority can now be treated as non-business. So now, when a local authority sells a leisure service, a gym membership, for example, it no longer needs to charge VAT on that sale. As it is treated as non-business, the local authority is also able to recover all the VAT it incurs for providing that service. Several leisure operators who manage leisure centres on behalf of local authorities are now considering how the change can also improve the VAT position between the operator and the local authority. In September 2024, Everyone Active sent a proposal to North Herts Council for consideration regarding the creation of an agency model, whereby they would act as our agent for delivering leisure services. The details of the proposal were discussed during the Part 2 item.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is that Cabinet agree in principle to entering into an agency agreement with SLM, Everyone Active, for the operation of our leisure facilities and varying the contract in accordance with the external Part 2 Appendix C legal advice and Part 2 legal implications. And 2.2, delegate the financial decision on entering into the agency agreement to the service director place in delegate the final decision on entering into the agency agreement to the service director place in consultation with the executive member for leisure, environment and green spaces and service directors, resources, legal and community. And the executive member for finance. So just to go over 2.2 again, delegate the final decision on entering into the agency agreement to the service director place in consultation with the executive members for leisure, environment and green spaces and executive member for finance and service directors, resources, legal and community. May I have a proposer, please? Councillor Debenham.
Happy to propose.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Winstanley.
Happy to second.
May we move to the debate, please? Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, just want to say I'm satisfied with the guidance that there is on the VAT position, income for the council. Yeah, happy to agree to this.
Thank you very much. There was a lot of debate in Part 2, so in that case, if there is no further debate now, may we move on to the vote, please?
Yeah, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Item 10 is the Corporate Peer Challenge. The Council recently undertook a Corporate Peer Challenge between the 4th and the 7th of November 2024, when we were visited by a peer team supported by the Local Government Association. The peer team met with a large number of staff and councillors, as well as external stakeholders, such as contractual partners, neighbouring authorities, and members of the community. The peer team has produced a feedback report, which is attached at Appendix A. I'm going to ask Anthony if you would like to present.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you say, we had the peer team with us at the beginning of November. I think the report produces what we expected, which is highlight some things that we do well and highlight some areas we could do better in. I think it's probably fair to say there weren't too many surprises with the areas that they identified that we could improve in, as it was things we'd recognised ourselves anyway. But absolutely helpful to have that external perspective, and some of the ideas they shared with us during the week they were with us and also in the report have been very helpful. In terms of next steps, the requirement on any council that's undertaking a peer review is that we have to publish the final report within 3 months of the review taking place. So for us, that's no later than the 7th of February. Clearly, we've published it by virtue of bringing it to Cabinet tonight, but we have also set up a page on our website, which will have the background document that we produced for the peers, this report, and ultimately the action plan when that is produced. The next step after that is we have to produce the action plan within 5 months of the peer challenge. So for us, that means no later than the 4th of April. So the proposal is that we will work that up. As you will see from the recommendations, it's proposed that myself and the leader and deputy leader take the lead on pulling that together, but that will be with the input of everyone in this room and other colleagues as well, to bring that back to your March meeting of Cabinet. I know the draft of the published report talks about your next scheduled meeting. I forgot we had one in February. So what I actually meant was to bring it back to the March meeting, which will then achieve what the LGA requires of that coming back before the 4th and being published before the 4th of April. And then the next stage after that is the LGA will arrange with us a mutually convenient date for a progress review, where probably just some of the peers will come back and chat to us about our progress against the things they identified and our action plan. So broadly speaking, that will be September 25, but date to be confirmed for that. I think that probably covers everything I wanted to say, but of course, more than happy to answer any questions.
And with that, do we have any questions? Okay, the recommendation is 2.1, note the contents of the Corporate Peer Challenge report and its recommendations. 2.2, request that the Managing Director, Leader of the Council and Deputy Leader develop an action plan responding to the recommendations in the Corporate Peer Challenge report to be reported to Cabinet on the 18th of March 2025. I would like to propose this. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Val Bryant.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Debate. Councillor Albert.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. And I think probably thanks to obviously particularly a lot of staff who are involved in obviously meeting and organising everything and making sure people are in the right places and so on. So thanks to everyone for that. I think it was a really helpful sort of sessions, and I certainly had a really useful session with the team on finance issues, and I think it's a valuable way of exploring, you know, ideas and thoughts and get some different perspectives. I think it's really, you know, perhaps I would say this, wouldn't I? It did talk some, and I will mention later on about the positive comments they made about the state of our finances, thanks to Mr. Cooper and his team. But I think, you know, that message about that we perform well, caring and delivering for our residents with a clear understanding of the needs. Really importantly, we have a happy workforce who feel supported, and I think these were really important things to come out of the report. But I think there's no question, and you know, we've talked about this before in relation to comments that colleagues from Overview and Scrutiny have made about making sure that we balance our council delivery plan and our financial capacity and financial availability, and clearly the need for absolute clarity on our priorities between staff and councillors at all levels, and obviously particularly it mentions there about the importance of strengthening project and program management, which is very important because we've got some really big projects on the go at the moment and some potentially some future ones. So I think those recommendations are welcome, and I think that the action plan that I think Anthony and the team will develop and we can debate in the future will be really important to be able to take us on to the next stage, having developed our council plan and our council delivery plan. So support the recommendations and looking forward to seeing the action plan that we can then take forward as both as a leadership and across the whole of the council.
Thank you. I just want to say on this that it was very important coming in as a new administration to bring this forward and get a peer challenge. And I really do appreciate all the work that the peer team did when they came in and all of the work that our officers did to support them. I'm very happy with the recommendations that have come out of it. I'm very happy with the results that have come out of it, and I am proud of North Herts Council. Is there any further debate? No, in which case we'll move on to the vote on recommendations 2.1 and 2.2, please.
Yeah, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 11, Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Report of Failings in the Investigation of Statutory Noise Nuisance by North Herts District Council, reference number 23014-065. Jeanette, to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully it's clear why I'm presenting this as a monitoring officer, and that's set out in the legal implications. I don't have too much to add to this particular report. You'll see that the full report is at Appendix A, and you'll see that the recommendations that the LGO made are at 7.2 and 7.3, and the compliance information is set out at 7.3. I was asked in advance of the meeting just for some clarification as to when the 3Cs policy was going to be reviewed by the customers team, and was told that this would start in March and April of this year, with the aim that this will be taken to overview and scrutiny and or cabinet after that in around about June or July, depending on our calendar of meetings. And the only other thing to add is obviously we have the service director here and Grant Scott, who can answer questions about the service area concerned. And obviously you have your executive member. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No. The recommendation is 2.1, we consider the LGO report. 2.2, we note the LGO recommended action compliance information as in paragraph 7.2 and 7.3. 2.3, we consider the measures that the Environmental Health Service has put, will put in place to prevent the recurrence of these failings. 2.4, we note that the Council's comments, compliments and complaints policy and procedure will be reviewed in 2025, as we've just heard, to potentially include remedies and supporting guidance which will be issued for officers. Therefore, the recommendation to Council, 2.5, the revisions to Section 14 of the Constitution relating to LGO decisions and payments as detailed under Section 8.5 of this report. May I have a proposer, please? Councillor Bryant, thank you.
Propose.
And a seconder, please, Councillor Winstanley.
Yep, happy to second.
Thank you. May we move on to the debate? Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, just like to second that we acknowledge the findings of the report. I mean, there were factors that contributed to the situation at the time. COVID, obviously, and the landscape left in its wake, but also serious historic staffing and resourcing issues directly affecting the environmental health team. The team now on their way to being in a completely different place. Improvements in terms of training, systems, staff competency, core processes have been tightened, and hopefully more positive improvements to come. But we accept the findings and move on from here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Debenham.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think in the long term, this could actually turn out to be good, that we learn the right lessons and carry forward. I think, I fully endorse following the recommendations.
Thank you both. If there's no further debate, may we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Item 12 is the Local Development Scheme report of the Principal Strategic Planning Officer. Cabinet has resolved to proceed with a full review and update of the North Herts local plan in January 2024. This report seeks the approval of an updated local development scheme, an LDS. The LDS is a statutory document that sets out a council's timetable for preparing its local plan in accordance with Section 15 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, as amended. Strategic Planning Project Board were consulted on and endorsed the proposed LDS in November of 2024. Following the change of government, the proposed reform to the plan-making system consulted upon by the previous Conservative government, complementing the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act of 2023, have to date not been published or therefore implemented. In the intervening time, the strategic planning team have begun to undertake updates to evidence and policy documents that will support and inform the local plan update, including a Green Belt Review update, a Landscape Review update, the Town Centre Strategies / Retail Demand update, which was presented to Project Board in October, the Strategic Housing Market Assessment update, the Developer Contributions Supplementary Plan Document SPD update, a Sustainability SPD, which was adopted in September of 2024, the Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment, the NPPF 2024 was updated on the 12th of December 2024, reflecting the changes proposed in the consultation document earlier this year. This is the report that I am presenting. Do we have any questions? No. The recommendation is that Cabinet approves the local development scheme attached at Appendix A. Yep. I will propose that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Debenham. We go to debate. I would just like to say during the debate, the work that has been done on the sustainability SPD has been absolutely brilliant, has had really positive feedback from developers as well as other stakeholders. I think is a real jewel in the crown for us as a council. Does anybody else want to say anything on this? Councillor Albert.
So Chair, it probably is actually a question, but I mean, I support the paper. It's probably just to really to understand, perhaps from your officers, really around some of the next steps that with the development scheme, and clearly how we especially at the moment where there are obviously some quite number of strategic planning, applications coming through, master plans and so on, and really obviously how we communicate this both to councillors and indeed more particularly sort of the general public about what difference this makes and what they will see differently or additionally and so on.
I'm very happy for that question to be asked now, and I shall pass that over to officers.
Hello. So in terms of the strategic sites that are coming forward, they will progress as expected under the current local plan. The plan for any future updates, we need to work on a statement of community involvement. So we're engaged with the comms team at the moment to look at sort of new ways to engage with hard to reach groups within the community. And we are working as well with our neighbouring local authorities to do some joint work on evidence studies as well coming forward. So yes, there is a timeline that is working to. We are still waiting for the regulations to be published, and we are expecting them sooner rather than later now. But obviously that will inform the progress that we make, but we will keep you all updated as and when there is anything to report to you.
Thank you very much. We have a proposer and a seconder. We've had debate. May we go to the vote, please?
Yeah, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Item 13 is the strategic planning matters. Strategic Planning Matters report to Cabinet identifies the latest position on key planning and transport issues affecting the district. Cabinet was last updated in September of this year. The National Planning Policy Framework of 2024. The government issued a new version of its policy framework shortly before Christmas. It contains some significant changes, particularly in relation to housing and green belt policy. We have lost some of the protection that was afforded to us by our local plan. We cannot demonstrate a 5-year land supply under the new rules, and we'll have to consider all relevant planning applications on this basis. The new government definition of grey belt, which is land in the green belt meeting certain criteria, might affect more land in North Hertfordshire than we previously thought. Council's response to the draft framework was debated at full council in September and is attached to this report. However, many of the issues contained in the full council resolutions and our consultation response to government have not been included in the revised framework. We need to consider Luton Airport. A decision on the expansion of Luton Airport has been delayed again until April of 2025. Our neighbouring authorities have recently consulted on or are currently consulting on updates to their local plans, and we've sent responses to the plans of Uttlesford and St Albans, and these are appended to the report. Stevenage and Luton are currently consulting, and we'll be preparing our responses to them to report on in a future meeting. This report will update councillors on a number of other planning matters, including the progress of our neighbourhood plans, an update on the strategic sites in our local plans, the joint planning work with our neighbours, and the Chilterns National Landscape. Details are set out in the report, and officers are available to answer any questions on these, as well as the main items I have highlighted. As such, do we have any questions for officers, or would the officer like to make a presentation at this point? Happy with questions. Do we have any questions on this, please? Councillor Amy Allen.
I'm going to ask this as someone who's been staring at a screen for 12 hours. Can someone explain in as layman terms as possible how these changes are going to impact us directly in the general running of what we do for everything from planning to and such? Not everything, but just in general.
I should pass that along.
Sorry, I've got a squeaky microphone. Sorry, specifically what were you referring to? The MPPF?
The changes that have been brought in, because obviously there's a lot of work that went into that, and then some changes come along. So how is it going to impact us, like the expansion of our green belt and everything? Is that going to be impacted now, or is that going to stay as we wanted?
So in terms of 5-year housing land supply, so the report sets out that we were protected by the 5-year housing land supply because we had a recently adopted local plan. That has been removed from the updated version. So we revert back to having a 3.6 year, I think it was, housing land supply, which means that we have to consider the presumption of sustainable development with any plan application coming forward. So that puts us in a difficult position, but our housing land supply should improve as our strategic sites come forward, and then we will be afforded the protection of 5-year housing land supply again. In terms of Greenbelt and Greybelt, government have made funding available to local authorities and have invited them to make expressions of interest in order to undertake new Greenbelt studies. So we have been in conversations with Stevenage and East Herts to do a joint one across the 3 districts. That would have a standard methodology across all of us and would be beneficial to all of us, in later dates. That will consider the parcels that we have at the moment and would help identify any other parcels for Greybelt consideration and classification going forward, which we would therefore need to consider for potential development as well. But obviously doing that evidence study, we are coming from an informed position then, rather than discussing opinions with developers of what they think Greybelt is and what we think it is. We've already undertaken some work to put us in a good position in terms of that for any developers that come forward in the interim period between now and when that study is in place.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Albert.
Two questions. First of all, just in terms of the draft town centre strategy, are we able to say anything more in relation to when this might come to cabinet? But also, is the intention also to arrange discussions at the area forum level about the sort of specific town centre guidance? I have another question, but it's not related to that. So do you want me to ask that as well, or come back?
No, we'll come back. We'll do this one quickly. Soon is my short version. I will, however, go on for a more precise version. I think Ian's going to take this one.
Thank you. We presented the work that we'd done on the town centre strategies to Project Board pre-Christmas, and I think in discussions with Project Board, with the forthcoming Churchgate development, the forthcoming economic strategy, and the forthcoming development that we have with Garden Square, and the conversations there, rather than kind of the stepped approach that's in the local plan of kind of doing one town centre strategy after another, we're going to do them all as one. Hence the slowness, for want of a better word, with regard to it. We are hopeful to bring it pre the PERDA period, but in answer to your second part, we've held a number of stakeholder events with, for example, the owners of Litchfield Garden Square, the bids and others, and then when we bring it for Cabinet to consider, the request will be to go out to public consultation again of the completed strategy, of which we will then engage clearly with the bids, the Heritage Foundation, etc., etc.
and presuming that that also would pick up the our area forums as well, because I think
Yes.
that's a really important thing to do. Yeah.
I'm sure our executive member will be more than happy.
I can promise you that we will go to all of the area forums to discuss this. Relevant area forums to discuss this. Your second question, Councillor Albert.
Yeah. Now, I do not pretend to be an expert on planning issues, and particularly I had to sort of struggle around to work out what Reg 18 was and so on. But I gather that Luton are in 8.18. Luton are consulting. Are there any particular implications for in that Luton consultation, which runs up to the 7th of February, for the discussion we're going to have at council tomorrow about the East of Luton master plan?
So the Reg 18 is the public consultation, and it is very much an issues and options for what Luton could do going forward. We haven't been through the whole document in its fullness just yet. But no, obviously we would consider the implications of their options on North Herts, but certainly would continue to have those duty to cooperate discussions with them and keep ourselves informed of their positions and their intentions. The more formal submission or the formal consultation is the Reg 19, which would be their submission document, which, yeah, that would get down to sort of the nitty gritty. But at the moment, this is just them considering what's possible.
What I would say to that is what Luton consider in the future does not affect our local plan now. Any other question? No. The recommendation is Cabinet note the report on the strategic planning matters. That's interesting wording. Note the report on strategic planning matters be noted, and endorse the documents at appendices A to D. I would like to propose this. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Amy Allen, thank you. The debate. We've discussed our master plans many times. It's good to see we have the progress coming on our neighbourhood plans, and that we have the joined up thinking around the town centre strategies and the future planning. I'm very happy with this, and I do thank all of the officers for the hard work that's been put in. Is there any further debate? In that case, may we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 14 is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme 2526. Councillor Albert to present, please.
Cheers. Thank you, Chair, and welcome, and look forward to presenting this document, the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. We're required to review our Council Tax Reduction Scheme each year in accordance with the Local Government Finance Act. We did a comprehensive review in 22-23, which meant we introduced the banded scheme, which is now in its second year. And I think this has been welcomed both with our external partners and indeed more particularly with residents and those people applying for council tax reduction. Our 24-25 review concluded that no significant changes are necessary to the scheme. However, two minor adjustments are recommended. one related to the Post Office compensation scheme and another to adjust the income bands to reflect the Consumer Price Index, CPI. These adjustments ensure the scheme continues to support those most in need. And I was very particularly anxious, and I think working with officers to make sure that we don't let our banded and our bands fossilize, and so that's the reason why we have reflected that change to the bands in the and proposing that change in the coming financial year. The CTRS is divided into two schemes, one for pension age, which is set and funded by government, and one for working age applicants determined by the authority. The banded scheme, introduced in 23, aims to support those on the lowest incomes to reduce the administrative burden to the council, simplify the understanding of entitlement, and provide, and I think this is really important, provide financial stability by reducing monthly changes to council tax bills. The scheme allows for variation in household size and provides a standard £50 per week disregard against all earnings to encourage work and employment. The scheme is constantly monitored, and as I say, for 25-26, two minor changes are recommended and are reflected in the recommendations. The Council has further strengthened its policy on investigating and handling fraud, as recommended by our shared anti-fraud service. The cost of CTRS in 24-25 was approximately 9.18 million, shared between the council and the major precepting authorities. Maintaining the existing scheme with minor changes to thresholds is estimated to result in a slight reduction in the tax base, equating to an estimated reduction in funding for North Herts of approximately 12,000. So for Cabinet, I'd like to move recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. I'm particularly asking you to note that continuation of the of our discretionary hardship scheme, which we agreed to provide transitional support, and that will continue as set out, as I say, in 2.3. So I'd like, Chair, to move those three recommendations. Happy to pick up any questions, and as always here, just to thank Joe Dafferty and all our team for all the work that they do this on a day-by-day basis in supporting our residents most in need.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. Are there any questions? No, in that case, Councillor Albert has moved the recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Debenham. Thank you for seconding. We move on to the debate. Councillor Debenham.
Support this, Chair, and I think if the first year of a Labour administration withdrew this, it would be an absolute scandal.
Yes. In that case, we'll go to the vote.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Move on to item 15. This is the report on risk management governance, our mid-year update. This is a referral from the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. Can I invite Councillor Sean Nolan as the Chair of Finance, Audit and Risk to present the referral on this item?
Thank you, Chair. The discussion around this item focused on a few areas. A large part of that was on the sort of key risks, the key corporate risks that are presented. There was some discussion around those in particular. A note of thanks to officers, particularly Ian Cooper, for the presentation of the report, and in particular the way that the changes that were requested previously have been made. It's made it much easier for committee members, I think, to interrogate the detail there, and to ensure that there's more useful discussion that comes out of that. There was a couple of points made around questions on emergency planning and some of the sort of key risks to councillors and their consideration of that. But obviously, again, the report itself as pointed out, focuses on the corporate risks. So particularly those around things like resourcing that obviously affect multiple areas within the council rather than specific areas. There are a couple of questions as well, a couple bit of discussion around training, both for officers and for councillors. And it was definitely welcomed about the regularity of that training and ensuring that the council has the correct skills to ensure that risk management is done in the manner that's required. I think that's it from me on this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Albert, would you be willing to present the report, please? Sorry, my apologies. First, are there any questions to Councillor Nolan? No. Okay, back to Councillor Albert presenting, please.
Just thanks, Chair. And again, obviously, thanks to Sean and the Finance Audit and Risk Committee for their discussions and clearly to support and endorse the that discussion and the report that Sean's just given you. Particularly, I think important about providing that more detail in the executive summary and starting to track actions against the red corporate risks. I think it not only in doing that, I think it'll both be helpful to Cabinet in maintaining an oversight here, as well as executive members having a more detailed focus on their individual projects and risks. I think it's really important the risk reviews are being carried out, even when maybe they don't always result in changes in the risk scores. Which it's important to make sure that risk reviews are being done. That's welcome, and we keep under review all of that, our key corporate risks on a regular basis. Chair, we're asked to approve the minor changes to the risk management framework as set out in recommendation 2.2. Happy to move those recommendations, and obviously Ian Cooper and I are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions at all for Councillor Albert, please? I'm going to ask a question. This might not be the right one, so if I make a mistake, fair enough. Is local government reorganisation on our risk register? And I'll leave that question there.
I think I'll get Ian to pick up in detail, but that question, as for my recall, was asked at FAR, and the answer is we should, I think, look to include a new risk around local government reorganisation. And I think, I don't know if Ian, you want to come in just to say how that's been sort of taken forward within the council.
Yeah, we haven't done it yet, but I think a new risk and a new project is in order for that particular thing. And it was asked at both ONS and at FAR.
So if it's been asked at both of these, when will it be included?
It will certainly be done in time for the next quarterly update on risk on the council delivery plan. So we'll do it shortly, but by that date.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any further questions? No. Councillor Albert has moved the recommendations. 2.1, we note the mid-year risk management governance update. And 2.2, we approve the changes to the risk management framework. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Amy Allen. Move to the debate. Risky business. Nope. No debate on this. I will say thank you for bearing in mind all of the items. And thank you for giving me reassurance that LGR is being considered. May we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Item 16, the second quarter revenue budget monitoring 24-25. This is again a referral from FAR. May I please invite Councillor Sean Nolan as the Chair of Finance, Audit and Risk to present the referral on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Lot of detail covered in this particular report, some of which was pulled up during the debate and the questions. I think one of the key areas was understanding, as we talked about risk in the last item, how some of those risks flow into the day-to-day effect that it has on the council, so particularly around resourcing. It's noted, obviously, that there is a decrease in spending at this point, an increase in net later years. On paper, obviously, this looks good, but fundamentally, we understand that this is a nature of the resourcing issues that currently exist with the council. So whilst, it is good to see that the spending is not going beyond the point that we can afford, it's obviously noted that because of the resourcing issues, spend is being moved to a point where hopefully a resource will be in place to allow for projects and work to be undertaken. I think other than that, not too much else was picked up in particular. So I think that's it from me on this particular report, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Nolan? In that case, can I ask Councillor Albert to present the report, please? And thank you, Councillor Nolan, for bringing that to us.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. And again, obviously, thank Councillor Nolan and the FAR team for their comments for the Cabinet. I think it's obviously one of the things that Ian Cooper and I did discuss. We've got obviously, and we will sort of look at for the future. We're looking here at the sort of the end of the second quarter report, end of September report, and here we are in the sort of middle of January. And I guess there certainly is an issue perhaps there just to think about the sort of timing of reports. The reports are being done, but obviously how we come to Cabinet and indeed come to FAR with those ones, because it obviously feels we'll soon be discussing a quarter three report, and here we are looking at quarter two. So I think there are perhaps some timing issues there, sort of, Chair, to just think through for council and how we time these reports and into the schedule of meetings that our committee service colleagues plan, and just maybe sort of get the timing thing of those right. I appreciate it's difficult because of so many other meetings. This report details, as I say, the variances against the revenue budget that have been identified during the second quarter and beyond. Overall, there is a 550,000 decrease in net spend, though it's requested that 317,000 is carried forward. So this is delayed spend rather than a genuine underspend. All the explanations are detailed in Table 3. The ongoing impacts, excluding carry forwards, around a minus of 11,000. This will be added to the ongoing projections when we set the 25-26 budget. The 25-26 budget setting process will also include a further review of spend in the current year to identify any further potential ongoing impacts. As an addition to the usual report, in paragraphs 8.16 and 8.17, there are two debt write-offs to agree. So I'd like to move, Chair, the recommendations in the report, and obviously happy to pick up any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Are there any questions for Councillor Albert, please? No. The recommendation is that Cabinet note this report. 2.2, approve the changes to the 24-25 General Fund budget as identified in Table 3, and paragraph 8.2, a £550,000 decrease in net expenditure. 2.3, note the changes to the 25-26 General Fund budget as identified in Table 3 and paragraph 8.2, a total £306,000 increase in net expenditure. These will be incorporated in the draft revenue budget for 25-26. And 2.4, approve the debt write-offs detailed in paragraphs 8.16 and 8.17. Councillor Albert has moved this. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Amy Allen. May we move on to the debate? Housing and environmental health apprenticeships item, I think is interesting and needs looking at. And it is therefore requested that we carry forward the unspent budget to the next financial year. And I look forward to seeing that used and having a really good apprenticeship team coming through there. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? No. In that case, may we please go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 18 is the revenue and capital budget for 25-26 onwards. This is another referral from FAR, our last referral from FAR for the evening. Can I invite Councillor Sean Nolan, as Chair of the Finance Audit and Risk, to present the referral on this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. As probably you can see from the minutes, a lot of discussion here was around the the future sort of mid-term financial health of the council, understanding the effect of the budgets currently and where that would lead. It was raised previously, I think, in another item around that emerging risk of local government reform. What that means for the council, given as Councillor Albert pointed out in the night, it means that this council may not exist at the point that the medium-term financial strategy ends currently. Something that would need to be considered in terms of what that then means looking forward and how we deal with that. There was discussion and questions, particularly around where we currently are in terms of meeting a balanced budget. Obviously, it's being achieved at the moment with the use of business rate and general fund reserves. There were questions, and I think the point was made there again by Councillor Albert about the fact that we are now in a position where reserves allow us to make decisions in the sort of longer term. Nothing needs to be rash. It can be thought out, and we can look to make prudent decisions rather than fairly wild cuts. It was noted again as well, obviously it's regrettable that we weren't able to be included in the business rate pool this year and gain the benefits that we have done previously there. Obviously means we do miss out on an element of funding that we otherwise have been picking up recently. And again, it's becoming, I think, Ian Cooper's regular update now about the effective interest rates on our investments. I think there's probably coming to the point where that will start decreasing and the gains there will start to tail off somewhat. But again, it's, I suppose, from our perspective as a council, been fairly welcome that has continued to act as an income stream that otherwise we probably wouldn't have had. Just to mention as well that there was a bit of discussion around the obviously upcoming budget, the proposals that have been fed in, the input from the various workshops that have been undertaken, and they were noted in the report where they had been proposed and put through and helped affect the budget as well. So again, it's thanks to those councillors who have put ideas forward, who have made comments in those workshops, again, to help produce what we hope will be a robust budget that we put forward to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Nolan? No. In that case, I'll ask Councillor Albert to present the report, please.
Cheers, Chair, and you'll be pleased I'll be rather briefer than probably maybe in about 6 weeks' time. I think, but nevertheless, this is an important sort of stage of the budget setting process. And I think, as Councillor Nolan says, that it was welcome to see in the Corporate Peer Challenge that where they said that prudent sort of financial management sees North Herts Council in a strong position with good reserves and low borrowing, and that very much is I think really that sets the scene for what the work that we been doing and will continue to do in managing the budgets of this council. And I think it's also important to say is that whilst we know that there's a lot of work going on, as we've touched on earlier this evening, around devolution and local government reorganisation, really important and difficult challenges for which, you know, councillors, officers, and obviously residents will be involved as that goes forward. Nevertheless, it's important about how we run and manage North Herts Council in the meantime. That's you know, we can't let our guard down and drop the work that we're doing currently. So I think it's important to set, I think, Cabinet and Council that challenge, that no matter what happens on local government reorganisation, we still need to do the things that are right for our residents and in managing the financial situation and the services, the important services that we provide for residents over the course of the next few years. I think that we've seen that obviously the Herts County Council have obviously begun a similar process. They'll be looking to increase their council tax by the 4.99%, the full increase. That's an £85 increase. I see the police commissioner is proposing a near 6% increase, £14 worth. Our increase, and we're proposing the full 2.99%, which is an expectation of government, will be £7.77. And indeed, we will find by next year, I think it's likely that the police share of the police commissioner share of the council tax collected, that the North Herts Council collects on behalf of authorities, actually the police share of that council tax will actually overtake North Herts Council by 26-27 on likely increases, I suspect. So our increases are modest, but our services we provide, and we know that from in terms of our waste and leisure services, the services we provide are important for our residents, and those costs have increased. So there are significant challenges there, and then we've seen, we welcome what government are doing, and we welcome some of the assurances that government have given us. But clearly, after a period of significant grant reductions, inflationary increases, and impacts of the pandemic, you know, we have seen a big rise in services like homelessness and so on, which have added pressure. So we have a difficult period ahead, but we have the ability to be able to manage that. So as I say, you'll know about the process to date. We need to review what was discussed at the budget workshops and additional information that's provided since then, and decide what we would like to be incorporated into the proposals for the 25-26 budget. I think there are some key sort of issues that we do need, I think, to sort of clear sort of specifically this evening. Certainly, I think colleagues here will be aware that that we are, and our proposal is that we do go out for a public consultation around Sunday and evening charging and the general car parking structure. And indeed, obviously, Councillor Allen may want to say some further things around that. But the important thing there in terms of that consultation, it will also be a part of actually introducing new technology, pay on exit machines from next month as part of that process of how we manage our car park. So I think the steer, you know, clearly a steer there about the principle of Sunday charging and evening charging, but it's important to recognise that there is a consultation. You've got some decisions to reach in relation to the environmental health proposals. We heard this evening about the issues that were raised by the Ombudsman. I think be good to have a discussion, I think, as we go into this, around which proposal that Cabinet would like to take forward there. I think it was pretty clear from the discussion we had at the workshops and elsewhere that we'll be looking to remove the proposal about the civic secretary post, which is R14. Service director capacity, I think, is a really key issue, which was R18, and I certainly would propose that we do actually take forward that investment proposal. Since actually producing the paper first, we've finalised the impact of pay inflation, so we have some 58,000 of saving towards that post, but so I think I would certainly propose here that we would recommend that to council, that we do consider and continue with that R18 proposal. In addition, we obviously had a conversation around the Walsworth Pavilion, the changing rooms. I think the view clearly at the moment is that I think that scheme is still important, but I think as of today, I wouldn't propose that we actually change the amount of money that's in our capital proposal for that. There's also a proposal around an interactive water feature, which was ECP 23. I think we're looking to shelve that proposal for the time being. I think perhaps just to conclude, Chair, that the report sets out the funding position based on provisional settlement. This includes some uncertainty over additional funding for the impact of national insurance increases. We're asked to note this and also confirm that if we want to deliver as many services to our residents as we can, then that we should raise the council tax, as I said earlier, by the maximum amount that we can allowed without a local referendum, which is the 2.99%. And so I've touched on the increases from the HCC and Police Commissioner are proposing. But even with that council tax increase, that we will still have to deliver significant savings over the next 2 to 3 years, as we set out in our medium-term financial strategy. But we have the wherewithal and the ability to deliver those savings and actually consult with residents about their priorities when that time comes. So I move the paper, Chair, and we probably just need to sort of go through some of those individual proposals just to make sure we've got a clear steer as we go forward through the process.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Albert? You're welcome to make a comment, Anthony.
Thank you. It's just specifically on the leadership team proposal. I absolutely recognise, given the budgetary pressures we're under, that it's a hard ask to ask for a sum in that size. But you know, my promise to you is I would not be asking if I didn't think it was needed. And referring back to the Corporate Peer Challenge report that we looked at earlier this evening, you will note one of the recommendations in there was around leadership team capacity, and particularly the capacity to undertake strategic leadership. And indeed, the feedback from the peers was that 7 directors wasn't enough. But I really do think I would be stretching your patience with me if I asked for more than just 1 additional director.
Thank you very much. Any questions in the round for Ian? Although with this item, when we go into debate, I am going to also allow questions to go through during the debate because I think it's important with this. As no direct questions have come now, I'm going to go with the recommendation that we note the council's expected funding for 25-26. These are the recommendations, are the same as far. We confirm, in line with the medium-term financial strategy, that budget forecasts should be based on increasing council tax by 2.99%, the maximum amount allowable without a local referendum, noting that government have assumed council tax will increase by the maximum allowed in calculating the core spending power. 2.3, we note the council may see real term reductions in its funding in future years. And 2.4, agree in the context of the above which proposals, revenue and capital, should be taken forward as part of the budget setting process for 25-26. Councillor Albert has proposed, and I would like to second. We move forward to the debate. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you to Councillor Albert and everyone involved in this report. Just under the revenue budget proposals, just coming back to, as Councillor Albert mentioned, R4 to R11. And as we've seen highlighted in the item earlier this evening, the environmental health team has suffered chronic resource issues for a long time. It's a statutory function, critical function, which deserves significant funding to bring it up to where it really needs to be. The consequences of an underfunded environmental health team is scary territory, and we've already talked about risk management tonight as well. I know a scaled back bare bones resubmission was entered. But I really strongly feel that the original full bid is what's really required in this area. And I do urge colleagues to support that. Thank you.
Councillor Albert, would you like to respond to that comment?
I can do now or at the end, whichever you would prefer, Chair.
Let's go through as they come,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
So I think the paper sets out a balance of real challenges here in terms of what and what if we go forward with the full proposal, it is a significant sum of money. But I think the balance that I think that Councillor Winstanley set out, and obviously listening to the and reading the Ombudsman paper earlier on, I think has set out the importance of environmental health issues. And so whilst I absolutely appreciate that this is a difficult, I think, decision for cabinet and indeed for council, I think the balance remains that we do actually need to go ahead with the full proposal, but do need obviously to say to cabinet colleagues, that comes with an additional financial challenge to it. But the persuasive case, I think, that's been set out in the papers, some of the papers we've discussed this evening, I think actually leads us to that is probably necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. And I agree, Councillor Winstanley, and appreciate your answer, Councillor Albert. Next question, Councillor Amy Allen.
Thank you, Chair. It was purely to firm up the point that Anthony made, and that the proposals regarding leadership, service director, understood, welcome, and I agree with it.
Thank you very much. And as we saw earlier, as we were going over the peer challenge, it is something that has been recommended for North Herts Council, and it demonstrates that we are listening to recommendations that we get. Councillor Tamsin-Thomas.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Albert, for that report. I just wanted to comment specifically on two items, ECP 29, museum storage, and ECP 6, Woolsworth Common Pavilion. I think it's commendable that we're able to keep in the funding for both of these projects in the current times, particularly given that in terms of the museum storage, we really are beyond capacity now, and that there is an experienced risk to the collection. And so it is great that we have been able to find a way to keep that project in the plan, despite the pressures on the budget. Likewise with Woolsworth Common Pavilion, Perhaps changing room might be a slightly better term than pavilion for that particular item. But I think it is really important that in the district we do have a facility at Grassroots Community Sport where changing is possible, particularly if we really do mean it when we say things like we want to have equal access to sports facilities for women, girls and people of unspecified gender. So thank you for your work to keep those in the programme.
Thank you very much. Seeing as parking was mentioned, we are going to be having a consultation on parking. No decisions have been made as of yet. No matter what you may have heard in radio interviews and seen in the press, we have not made any decisions. What we have said is we need to spend £139,000 on updating and resurfacing our car parks. We also have our brilliant new pay on exit machines, which will be coming very, very soon. We held that back because that could have been done in December, but having spoken to local businesses, closing car parks in December wouldn't have been a very good idea. There will be recommendations towards a minimal price increase for parking locally, and by minimal I mean less than a tenth of a cup of coffee. We will also have recommendations coming forward towards different timings. All of those will be for consultation. Do we have any other questions on this item? In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder, and we have had the debate. May we please go on to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
I'm going to suggest that we now take a 5-minute break before we move on to the next item. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, are we back online? Wonderful. Welcome back. Item 19 is the Council Delivery Plan 24-25, our Q2 update. Councillor Ian Albert to present the referral from overview and scrutiny and report.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. So I think in terms of the referral from scrutiny, that in reality that pretty much all the discussion at the meeting was in relation to the decarbonisation issue, and so whilst obviously the report that was presented by the service director covered obviously the delivery plan in more detail, the actual discussion at scrutiny really largely and almost exclusively revolved around the decarbonisation update that Sarah Kingsley provided at the meeting. So I don't think there's sort of too much to add, Chair, on that. So with your agreement, I will move on to the full report if that's okay. In terms of the council delivery plan, and I think that's what I usually say at this point, I think this is a key document for Cabinet and indeed for scrutiny, and indeed obviously the document has been refined and indeed working with our sort of scrutiny colleagues, I think, to provide what you have in front of you today, the update on key projects, risks and performance indicators for the council. The performance indicators focus on those measures of overall performance. There are 2 amber indicators in the report and 1 red indicator, and the report describes the actions that are in place, particularly in relation to the red indicator for call answering times. And there have been some issues there, but I think work is in hand to help to resolve that and ensure that we can actually meet the target in relation to that as well. The detailed appendix sets out where we are in relation to a range of key projects. There are requests to delay 19 individual milestones to add 7 new milestones. Most of those delays are due to resourcing, and explanations are provided against the individual projects in the appendix. There are some recommendations there, Chair, for Cabinet, that we note the progress against the council projects, and that we note the performance against the performance indicators, recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. And as I say, in 2.1, we'll ask you to approve the changes to the milestones set out in Appendix A. So I'd like to move those 2 recommendations, and obviously we are here to answer any questions that Cabinet colleagues might have.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. Are there any questions at the moment? No, it's a very good report. It really does give all of the statistics and data. Thank you. The recommendation is that Cabinet notes the progress against council projects as set out in the council delivery plan and approves the changes to the milestones Appendix A. And 2.2, note the performance against the performance indicators and confirms the actions detailed in paragraph 8.4. May I have Councillor Albert has proposed, may I have a seconder so we can move to debate? Councillor Amy Allen. We move on to the debate. I'd like to start by saying I'm very happy to see and happy that Overview and Scrutiny have brought up the issues and let us know particularly about the call answering times within the 45 seconds. I'm even gladder to see the plans in place to bring that back down and to see that already from what we appear to have coming through, that is working. That's the point of Overview and Scrutiny. That's the point of making sure that risks are seen, acknowledged and worked through. So thank you very much. Is there any debate? In that case, can we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Item 20, the garden waste charge. Councillor Amy Allen to present the referral from overview and scrutiny and report.
Yay! The new subscription year for charging of garden waste commences the 1st of April 2025. Cabinet is being asked to consider an increase in the current annual charge to £55 a year. A 50% concession will still apply to those households in receipt of council tax reduction. Unlike household waste and recycling, there is no legal requirement to collect garden waste, and councils can charge for collections. Not all properties in North Herts require a garden waste collection service, as they either do not have a garden or compost their garden waste. The chargeable service means that only households that choose to use the service will pay. Under the new waste and recycling contract, which commences in May 2025, the costs to the council for the collection of garden waste will rise by around 42% in 2025, based on current year prices, with a further inflationary increase to be applied in May. Therefore, this is a key consideration when decided on the appropriate level of charge for 2025 to 2026. Alongside this, North Herts currently has one of the lowest charges in Hertfordshire, and therefore this context is also to be taken into consideration. Thrilled to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding this for Councillor Allen? Councillor Bryant.
Will the garden waste still be collected fortnightly?
Thank you. Yes, the garden waste subscription is not changing. It's staying 2 weekly. It will not be moving to 3 weekly, unlike the other bins for the dry recycling and the fibre, which is the paper and card, and the purple residual waste. The garden waste subscription, it will be staying at 2 weekly.
I don't see any further questions. Therefore, the recommendation is that Cabinet approves the garden waste subscription charge for the period from the 1st of April 25 to the 31st of March 26 at £55. Councillor Amy Allen has proposed. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tamsin Thomas. We move to the debate. Councillor Albert.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. Obviously, it's something that we were waiting for this item rather than covered in our previous report in terms of future budgets. Support this paper. Clearly, I think Councillor Allen has set out very clearly that already our charge, and even with this increased amount, remains competitive and largely below most other councils in across district council, borough councils across Hertfordshire. We've done all we can to try and keep that charge down to and that increase down to as a minimum. But clearly, with that increase that Councillor Allen set out, the 42% increase since the last sort of contract, I think we had no choice but to increase the charge. But we hope the residents will accept that we've done all we can to try and minimise that, and also with still 2 weekly collections, the that service that people will get, like all the other waste services that we have, will be, I think will be really effective as we move into the new contract. So I think it's a support the paper, and whilst we would ideally clearly not want to do this, but it is the right thing. It's the right balance to provide a good service for residents, and obviously making sure that we have appropriate income for the council from actually doing this work. So happy to support.
Thank you very much. I'm also happy to support, and I know there's been huge amounts of work that's gone on the waste contract in general. I know that garden waste is something that constantly comes up to debate, and also constantly comes up for false information being shared about it. I'm very happy to support this recommendation. And again, when you look at the figures locally, we are significantly less than a number of authorities such as St Albans, Three Rivers. We'll be going more in line with our neighbours. I think it is the right decision to make. I don't see any further debate. May I please move now to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Item 21, the decarbonisation of leisure centres update. Councillor Debenham to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start, just to remind everyone of what the Chair advised at the beginning of this meeting, was that due to additional information becoming available since the original publication of the papers, a supplementary report has been published. And I'd like to thank Sarah and all her team for putting this together at such short notice. Therefore, Cabinet are advised to disregard the original and only use the addendum report. We are now at the detailed design stage of the project to significantly decarbonise the Council's 3 leisure centres. The project has been made possible because of a £7.74 million government grant alongside the Council's own capital contribution. At this stage of the project, issues have been identified with both the operational efficiency and running costs of the air source heat pumps selected to replace the gas boilers and gas CHPs at the centres. There are, however, larger and more efficient heat pumps available. These are bespoke and are supplied on a longer lead time. Originally, due to the tight timeline in which we can spend our grant funding, we were advised that we could not pursue the larger heat pump option. Upon further investigation, we have now had confirmation from Salix that we can pay for the heat pumps up front. This would provide Wilmot Dixon with sufficient time to design and order the larger heat pumps prior to the 31st of March 2025 deadline. There are still financial implications for Cabinet to consider for both the running costs of the larger heat pumps and the capital costs. We will need to go through the design process before we will have the final cost certainty. We have employed our own M&E consultant working alongside our quantity surveyor who will review the design to ensure it is specified correctly and make sure we can take advantage of any potential savings. To ensure the overall project can progress, Cabinet are asked to consider the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. Cabinet should note that there is an error in the paragraph numbering in 2.1. This should read, the Cabinet agrees in principle to proceed with option 4A as detailed in paragraph 8.9.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Debenham? I have a question. We've looked at the figures. Are we budgeting for a worst case scenario?
Yes, we are. So then hopefully we won't have to come back again.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Councillor Debenham has pointed out that the recommendation is that Cabinet 2.1 agrees in principle to proceed with option 4A as detailed in paragraph 8.9. Then recommends to Council 2.2 to proceed with option 4A and approve the additional forecast capital and ongoing revenue costs, including revenue costs of capital, and note the ongoing project risks. Councillor Debenham has proposed. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tamsin-Thomas. We move on to the debate. Councillor Amy Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be daft to go back on this. We can't make a statement about climate emergencies and then balk at the opportunity to make major changes to our emissions when the opportunity arises, especially when there is a significant amount of grant funding on the table. I feel this is a no-brainer. I appreciate it's come back to us to discuss and make the decision, but yeah, it's a yes from me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Albert.
Yeah, I mean, this is another difficult decision for for Cabinet and Council. But I mean, as Councillor Allen has said, decarbonisation, climate change are the climate emergency, the clear priorities that we have set. But as you'd expect, I was concerned and remain concerned around the financial cost to this of the project, the additional costs to the project. But what I think persuaded by is that if we don't do this now, when will we ever do it, and when will we ever be able to do it? We know that if the boilers fail in either sort of Hitchin or in Letchworth, at the North Herts Leisure Centre in Letchworth, that's going to be a very significant cost, £250,000 to replace boilers there on each site, and they are becoming near the end of their life. And if we were alone doing air source heat pumps without a grant, that could well be over £1 million to provide a heat pump. So it just seems to me that if this is the challenge for us, that whilst obviously that there are additional costs there, but it actually, when you look at what the alternatives are, and if we didn't do this project, and the potential challenges that there would be in terms of replacement of boilers perhaps in the near future, and in wanting to do decarbonisation further down the line without the ability to have a grant and be able to get a grant, we simply would not be able to get a grant when we've replaced the boiler. So I think I just think on balance that this is, and going forward with that, option 4A is the right thing to do. Don't pretend it's easy, but I do think it's the right thing.
Councillor Winstanley.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Support moving ahead with option 4A. Yeah, it's a bit more money going in, but the bigger units will result in a reduction of the projected running costs. Against the smaller units. This is our opportunity to massively decarbonise an area of the estate, and this is our opportunity to do it. As colleagues have said, we may not get this chance again, so we've got to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Debenham.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Just so you know, I'm really glad everybody's picked up what the situation is, and just remind everybody again, the only reason we got the grant funding was because the boilers are at end of life. So if we turn it down, and well, they could go at any time.
Thank you. We have a council plan. Our council plan says that we will have a fairer, greener North Herts, and part of that is about sustainability. And if you look at what it says in our sustainability section, says we will develop a sustainability strategy setting out our approach to reducing carbon emissions, adapting to climate change, and improving nature. We'll continue to work with partners to help North Herts become a net zero district, and we'll continue to look for grants and income generation opportunities to support our priorities and help us return a balanced budget. We have all voted in favour of the local plan. We have a mandate to vote for this, and we should. So on that note, as I see nobody else looking to debate, may we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Unanimously. We now go back to item 17, which is the second quarter investment strategy, capital and treasury review 24-25. This is our referral from FAR. I was wrong. It wasn't our last one, was it? We kept you till the end, Sean. Can I invite Councillor Sean Nolan, the chair of the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, to present the referral on this item?
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the end on this one as it relates to the previous item. There was an amendment brought forward, which was accepted unanimously by the committee, and I think had Councillor Albert's backing as well. this was around making sure it's explicitly linking the moving of funding for the upgrades to the North Arch Leisure Centre to the decision made about 30 seconds ago by yourselves to make sure that the Works Leisure Centre only changed timings if the plan was taken forward to undertake the decarbonisation. As that has happened, I think therefore the item there now moves on, and therefore the committee is giving its backing to the moving of that funding to allow for the works at North Arts Leisure Centre, which will include the changing rooms and other facilities being upgraded, taking part at the same time as the decarbonisation works. So that is now covered. Other areas looked at, I guess Councillor Tamsin Thomas would be pleased to hear that there was discussion around the museum storage item, given that it's one of the larger items on the docket at the moment. It was generally agreed that it made sense that it was in there. It clearly is a major facility that the council needs both for its own items as well as those of other areas and councils as well. And there was a fair bit of discussion around that in terms of clarifying not just why it was on there, but also the process about where it goes next in terms of the report on options, eventually going back to ONS before going to Cabinet and Council. I think that really covers most of the other bits of discussion. I think, again, that the one thing that was note was raised as well is around the fact that there is quite a large deduction in terms of the figures included in the reports, but obviously again this is looking at moving money, I suppose, into the future rather than it being undertaken in the nearer term. Again, it was mentioned around the fact that links to the risk around having the right resources in place, understanding that's not something that can be easily solved, and again sort of I think verifies it being sat as one of the top 3 corporate risks in the risk register, given the effect it has on the council's ability to deliver. I think that's it from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Any questions for Councillor Nolan? No. In that case, I will ask Councillor Albert to present the report, please.
Just thank you. Thanks, Chair, and thanks obviously to Sean again. Now, I think there will be a couple of changes I want to recommend, Chair, to the existing report, but I'll come to those. The focus of the capital review at Q2 has been on challenging what is likely to be spent in this year, and indeed it's complementary to the work we'd already done about reviewing our future capital program earlier during the course of last year. Doing that review gives us greater certainty over our balances available for investment as we move towards the end of the financial year, and we've clearly seen the importance of that even just this evening. So that's why we're seeing around that £14 million of slippage and change to the capital programme. Table 3 details that some further capital budgets that aren't needed currently and can be removed from the capital programme. Now, I think on that particular note, obviously museum storage is mentioned in there as a slippage item. I would like to recommend, Chair, that we reduce the slippage on the museum storage item to 650,000. One of the options that we'd asked officers to look at was an alternative site to the current one in Berrymead Road in Hitchin. An alternative site has been identified and is being investigated, subject to a report coming back to our February or March meetings to set out the viability of the option. Leaving the provision in the capital programme would allow us to purchase the site before the end of March. That would then allow the project to move forward, and it might be necessary to move quickly if there are other interested purchasers. The value of the budget retained in this year would be inclusive of costs such as stamp duty. So, Chair, I hope that's a kind of both a welcome report. Obviously, thank sort of Councillor Thomas and officers for all the work they've done to get us to a really positive stage here. But that recommendation that we reduce the slippage on the museum storage item to 650,000, I'd like to make. Going on from that, as we've agreed to recommend option 4A to the council for the decarbonisation project, recommendation on 4 in this report would allow the works on the flume and changing room to be carried out at the same time as the decarbonisation works. The latest quote for the changing village is 330,000, which is different from what's in the report here. So I recommend that the referral to council reflects that new value. We've done some work to verify the quote and it's reasonable. It's just that the previous estimate, unfortunately, was too low. I think, and I'm looking at sort of Ian and Sarah here, the flume cost is still the same. That's still the same. So that's right. It's just the changing village that we would need to change from 250,000 to be brought forward to 330,000. Finally, Chair, the Treasury management section in the paper shows that other local authorities are still providing the best rates for investments. So this is still continuing with rates moving even higher. This is positive while we still have balances to invest, but does mean that the effective cost of capital spend is increasing. So that's like to recommend the paper in front of you, Chair, with those two changes, both on the changing village to 330,000 and the museum storage slippage to 650,000. But with those changes, happy to move this paper and the recommendations contained.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Albert? I have a very specific one. If you can't answer, that's fine. The Norton Common Bowls Pavilion. You're working with the Estates and Property Services to agree suitable lease terms with the users of the pavilion and the scope of the works to be undertaken to ensure the building is fit for purpose. This process has taken longer than envisaged. Do you know if we have a timescale around the Norton Common Bowls Pavilion at all?
I don't, but I'm hoping that there is a man who does, or we can take that away to check for you. Ian, have we got a timescale for that? Or Sarah?
There isn't a timescale as such. Part of the reason for the delay was obviously due to capacity in the estates team this last year. So now that we have a full capacity at estates, we will attempt to move it forward in the next financial year. But as to date, we haven't had the capacity to do that.
Thank you very much. Sorry to pick on one item. The recommendation, unless there are any further questions? Nope. The recommendations are that Cabinet note the forecast expenditure of £15.699 million in 24-25 on the capital programme, paragraph 8.3. Note the position of the availability of capital resources as detailed in Table 4, paragraph 8.6, and the requirement to keep the capital programme under review for affordability. We'll then take the recommendation to Council that it notes the position of Treasury management activity as at the end of September 24, and 2.4 approves capital budgets in 25-26 for a new flume for £300,000 and a refurbishment of the pool changing rooms, £250,000, at North Herts Leisure Centre, subject to the revised assessments following the decision by Cabinet regarding the public sector decarbonisation scheme on the 14th of January 2025. Councillor Albert has proposed. May I have a seconder, please?
Could I just come? I think we need to change the 250,000 now to 330,000. if we could to take that to council as a recommendation.
As we accept that, I'm going to repeat that. Sorry, everybody. 2.4 approves capital budget in 25-26 for a new flume, £300,000, and a refurbishment of the pool changing rooms, £330,000, at North Herts Leisure Centre, subject to the revised assessment following the decision by Cabinet regarding public sector decarbonisation scheme on the 14th of January 2025.
Yes, that sounds fine. And then could I, and probably just to seek Mr. Cooper's advice in relation to that change to the museum storage slippage, as to whether we need to take that as an additional recommendation to that, either just for here or to council.
It does not need to go to council. It would affect recommendation 2.1 because the forecast expenditure in the current year would increase. So I suggest you just put the end of 2.1 as amended by the decision to reduce the slippage of the funding in relation to the museum storage.
Bear with us. I will answer your call within 45 seconds. While we work out the exact wording for that, I can see that Councillor Debenham would like to speak.
Yeah, just from a dummy's point of view, I've heard it mentioned a couple of times. Can somebody explain to me exactly what we mean by slippage? Please.
Well, it's quite cold outside. And, I will pass that on to Mr. Cooper.
Sorry, it's an accounting term. I shouldn't use it. It refers to when you move capital budgets between years. So it's the way you don't deliver the capital scheme in the current year and move it to a subsequent year to be delivered at a later date. So it's deferring it to another year. So to confirm, revised 2.1 should read: the Cabinet notes the forecast expenditure of 16.999 million in 24-25 on the capital programme. Paragraph 8.3 refers, and as amended by the decision, to what I said before. So you've got that wording before, it can stay as it was, but the number changes to 16.999 million.
Everybody happy with that? Yes. I have a proposer in Councillor Albert. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Amy Allen.
Happy to second for Big Slide and everything else that was in that.
Can we move on to the debate, please? Nobody want to comment? I would like to say, having read through some of the items that have moved on to next year, I'm very excited to see things moving forward with Groundworks East. We've got some great developments coming up, including the renovation of the King George V skate park. I'm genuinely excited to see that. Skate parks and water slides. This is quite exciting. Any further debate? No, please may we go to the vote.
We'll just make sure that we're sure about
Sorry.
what we're voting on for the first item 2.
Okay. We would like to just make sure that we have the exact wording correct. So I'm going to let our monitoring officer tell us what we're going to be voting on.
So for 2.1, and this is the only one I'm going to obviously deal with, note the forecast expenditure of 16,999 in 2024-25 on the capital programme. Paragraph 8.3 refers as amended by the decision to reduce the slippage on the museum storage. Okay.
The rest of it remains the same. Can we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. I close this meeting. Our next meeting of Cabinet will be on the 11th of February 2025, subject to anything major happening. I look forward to seeing everybody at full council tomorrow.